Hello, and thanks for being here. We're excited to return for an in-person fall of 2021. Congratulations on making it through a tough last year. We know that you had to be resilient, you had to work hard, and we're very proud of everybody and the community as a whole. In the fall, we expect to have a back to nearly normal PACE experience. We're here today to talk about what that will look like and how we're going to make it happen. Vaccines are the key. It will allow us to go back to fully in person. It will keep each of us and our community safe. Dean Rachel Carpenter will walk through some new policies and requirements for our community. Then the panel of experts will answer questions. So we're really glad you're here tonight, and we are looking forward to seeing you this fall. First, let's have a few words from our provost, Vanya Quinones. We are looking forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you, Marvin, and hello, everybody. I don't know about you, but I'm really ready for having a normal fall 2021. Let's all celebrate that we all succeed through the last year thanks to the hard work and commitment of each of you. Once again, thank you. Effective next week, July 1st, we are removing masks and distance requirements on campus. Mask wearing is a personal decision. Effective August 16, everyone will be required to be vaccinated, including staff, faculty, and students. There will be exceptions for valid medical and religious reasons, and we will make some accommodations for remote learning where necessary. More information will follow on this web seminar. But overall, we are going back to a fall 2021 that is normal or more like 2019 than 2020. In-person classes, in-person activities, sports in Pleasantville, performance in New York City, every single thing that makes PACE such a unique place and experience. And we will be able to do this because of the vaccines. I am so proud of your commitment and resilience throughout last year. We got through it because of you. Now we need to get vaccinated, upload the vaccine records so we can have in-person experiences when we start on the fall. Dean Carpenter is going to take you through the new rules and regulations, and she will be joined by the panel, as Marvin said, to take your questions. So thank you, and I'm really looking forward to see you on the fall.
Thank you, Provost Quinones. So you've had two people already tell you this, but I need to tell you a third time. We're so looking forward to starting this semester in a way that is closer to normal. So many of your faculty and staff are also looking forward to creating more of those connections with you that we've been used to and spending more time together on campus. And so I'm going to share with you how we're going to get there, when we're going to get there, and what we're going to do leading up to the fall semester, including MoveIn, guest policy, events, and a few other things that we're looking forward to prepare for the year. And then we'll open it up to questions for our panelists. So similar to what Provost Quinones had communicated, she shared with you a few dates, and some of those dates were also communicated in an email that went out to the university community. I'm going to take just a little bit of time to elaborate a little bit. So July 1st, which is just around the corner for us, masking and distancing guidelines are going to be lifted on all Pace University campuses for all those who are vaccinated and who have uploaded and verified their vaccine record. We'll go into more detail about how to get that done today. Also, the pandemic capacity restrictions are going to be lifted in all PACE buildings. So we're going to see a return to classroom capacities, to event spaces, to lounges, so that we can have more space to enjoy those connections that we have really looked forward to for the past 15, 16, 17 months. So those who are not fully vaccinated are going to continue to be responsible for wearing masks and observing distance. And this is in accordance with current New York State guidelines, which points to CDC guidelines as well. So you can still come to campus without a vaccine currently, or an exception or an exemption, so long as you observe masking and distancing, and that's starting July 1st. But as we move to August 1st, that's the deadline for updating your vaccine records. You need to have completed the required shots, or shot if you have a Johnson & Johnson, just a one-shot series, by August 1st, but you don't need to have completed the full 2-week period of vaccination by the time that you upload it for August 1st. So if you do the math and you work backwards, if you're going to have a 2-shot vaccination, you need to really start thinking about beginning that the beginning of July. Again, it depends on the type that you're going to receive. So if you're going to be looking at something like a Moderna, you might need to start that earlier in July, whereas maybe the first dose for Pfizer could be about a week later, beginning to mid of July. So August 16th is kind of that magic date. It's COVID-19 vaccination is required for everyone accessing PACE campuses, except for those who have approved medical or religious exemptions. Most vaccinated individuals will be exempted from community testing. I know a lot of us were used to getting tested every week. Sometimes in the fall semester, we were randomized. In the spring, we were all getting tested. But moving forward, most vaccinated individuals will be exempted from that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And certain high-risk groups are going to continue to be in the testing pool, whether they're vaccinated or not, and tests will be available to those who wish to take one. If you have somebody who you live with someone who is immunocompromised, you yourself are, or you just would feel better taking a test, those types of things will be available to you, even if they're not required. So starting August 16th, you may not access campus without a vaccine unless you have an approved exemption. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time before I turn it over to the panel talking about the masking changes. So if you're fully vaccinated, you do not need to wear a mask for the most part. We will continue to follow state guidance for masking in healthcare settings, on transportation, and so forth. And you'll need to follow the rules of places where maybe you have internships or clinicals or placements where they may have a more stringent approach. And those who are not fully vaccinated, you're going to continue to be responsible for wearing masks and observing those distance, which is, as I said earlier, in accordance with state and CDC guidance. But all members of our PACE community will always have the option of wearing a mask for their own safety and comfort. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that if you're vaccinated, you can still choose to keep that face covering on. So a lot of the questions that we received throughout the entire year was, are we hosting events? Are they in person? Are they virtual? How do I do that? Events on campus, whether they're academic, student run, hosted by other offices, is one of the hallmarks of Pace University. And on-campus events are going to be able to return to occupancy levels that were closer to those pre-COVID times. So this is going to allow us to return to and build upon that community building we worked so hard to achieve in the past and that we really enjoy. We're most likely still going to have some pre-registration, attendance tracking at events, and during events, vaccinated individuals will have the option of wearing a mask or not, and those who are unvaccinated will still need to follow those CDC guidelines of wearing a mask. The staff and students who plan events are excited to be able to do so, excited to see you, are going to be building community together, enjoy the traditions that we've missed, and have an opportunity to create some new traditions together. So for the fall semester, student events will be for the PACE community members who are approved to access campus. So again, those are events that are hosted by our students and our student organizations. We're going to reevaluate this later in the semester to see if we can make some adjustments to increase the opportunity for outside guests to enjoy some of our student events with their peers or their friends. So that'll be for spring 2022. And then I really recommend, if you're involved in a student organization or you're interested in hosting events, that you really contact your organization advisor or staff member in the newly renamed Center for Student Engagement. It was formerly known as SDCA in Pleasantville or SEDACA in New York City. Their entire mission is based around engaging students in their campus experiences. And so they're going to be able to start helping you plan for the fall if you haven't already. I get a lot of questions from students about MoveIn. What is MoveIn going to look like? And it's going to look similar, it's going to look like a blend between fall 2019 and fall 2020, in that we're going to have more time to check in than usual, but less time than we did in fall 2020. So MoveIn's going to be by appointment only, allowing us to manage the number of students and families who have to pass through lobbies and using elevators during the move-in process. And you will be receiving more information from our housing operations staff about signing your housing agreement, reviewing the residential guide to living, and also selecting that move-in time. And the last thing I'm going to talk about before I turn it over to the panel is guests. This was something that was very important to our students and was a really difficult part. There are many difficult parts, but not being able to have guests within their residence halls. And so for this year, for this semester, residential students may have visitors, including other residential students and commuter students who've been approved to access campus after completing their vaccination or exemption process. We're going to reevaluate, similar to, like I said, in the events policy, whether we're going to expand the guest policy in residence halls for the spring. The guest policy from residential life will return to normal, meaning it's kind of a blend again for any Pace University students who are approved to be on campus. There's a certain maximum number of nights. They're ensuring your roommates are okay with guests. There is going to be a really specific language that you should review in the residential guide to living when you do sign your housing agreement this summer. But it's going to be the same policy, just restricting that we're not going to have non-PACE folks come into the residence halls, at least not yet, but we're going to get there. And while we still just wanted to let you know that we're still reserving some rooms in housing for isolation and quarantine needs, although we believe that we're going to have less of a need for that, we still want to be prepared because our aim is to permit close to normal occupancy of the residence halls, including the lounges and other common spaces. So those have been some of the more pressing priorities that students have been asking us about. What is it going to look like? And that was one of the reasons, the main reason that we were looking for vaccination requirements is how can we then move to a closer to normal fall semester? And so now I'm going to open up to some questions. Moderating our chat and asking questions of our panelists will be Andre Cordon, who is our Dean of Admission at Pace University. Thank you for joining us, Andre, tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Provost Quinones, who had introduced herself earlier this evening. We are also joined by the illustrious Dean D'Agostino, who is our Dean for Students and Campus Affairs at the law school. And then we also have Brian Anderson, who is the Director of Emergency Management and Environmental Health and Safety. He has been extremely busy this entire year helping us get through COVID-19 policy management.
Great. So I'll take it away. So students out there, families, thank you. Welcome. I'm here to moderate and help get some answers to your questions. So please use the chat function, ask your questions, and we will get to them as quickly as possible. And there's a number of questions right now, and I'll sort through them. So this one, you did this already. I don't know if you're going to touch on a little bit more about, there's questions about dorm policies and guests. So now that things have changed and lifted, are we able to have people in our dorms? What is the new visitor policy for residence halls?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little briefly, but residential students will be able to have guests in their rooms, but they can only be PACE students, whether they're residential or commuter students, whether they're from New York City, Pleasantville, or law school, who are approved to come onto campus through that vaccination or exemption process. And we're getting closer to normal by following our policy from previous years of there's a certain number of nights, basically, if you don't live here, you don't live with us. So really kind of thinking about how many nights your guest would stay, is it okay with your roommate or your suite mates? And so we're kind of returning to that process, but we will look at, in the middle of the fall semester, we'll start looking at how we can expand that to include non-PACE individuals.
So for Angela, at the law school, if one person is taking a course remotely for any reason, will the entire course be considered remote for everyone? Is there a law school remote waiver for the fall?
So thank you, and I hope everybody can hear me. So as Dean Gross indicated in her email on June 3rd to the students, the New York State Court of Appeals is very narrow in its reading of the ability to do remote learning for the fall semester. However, every class at the law school for the fall semester will be high flex because we will have students with exemptions and those that cannot attend class in person. And there was a process that we laid out to all students to ask for if there is a safety concern about coming to campus. So we expect you to be in the classroom unless there is an exemption, and that really comes from our regulators.
Dean Carpenter or Brian, question about roommates. And what if your roommate is not vaccinated or prefers not to answer that question? You don't know their status.
Yeah, so currently we are not able to give anybody information about somebody's health status, and that's information that is protected by law. And so if you know that you are unvaccinated and you have a roommate who's vaccinated, or you don't know, you might decide to engage in that conversation. What I would recommend is, and what we're actually telling people, is that CDC guidelines specifically for institutions of higher education indicate that if you have a mixed population, so let's say you live in a triple and 2 of you are vaccinated and 1 is not, and you do not have to wear masks. You are still considered that household or family unit, and so while you are within your suite or your room, you do not need to wear the masks unless somebody is ill, and really that might just be a practice that stays with us anyways, that even in our own families we're starting to see an increase in mask use because people are not feeling well. And so that's currently what the CDC guidelines are. So we're really looking towards New York State and CDC to help provide us for guidelines that are specific to institutions of higher education.
Great. And I'm not sure if you want to answer this question, or there's a couple of questions about, or we can just send a link. And they did receive an email. Students are asking how to upload their vaccination status. What are the guidelines for an exemption? What does the letter need to include? These type of questions.
All right,
I can
jump in.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go.
No, Brian, I was just going to call.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath. So thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Andre. So as far as uploading your vaccination record, we're going to be using the same tool that we used to upload our COVID pre-arrival test this past spring semester. So it's going to be the confidential patient portal that we use with University Healthcare, our Medicat system. So if you hear me say patient portal or Medicat, I'm talking about the same thing. So, and what you need is your proof of vaccination. So that's going to be your vaccination card, your little white card, or any sort of documentation from a healthcare provider that has your name, the date you received the vaccination, what vaccine you received, as well as the lot number. So that can be uploaded into the system. It does have to be in English. So if you did receive the vaccine from an international location, it just has to be translated. So you will need to get a medical interpreter or a similar service to do that for you. After you upload it, you do need to wait about 7 days because it is going to be reviewed by healthcare professionals. Then you'll receive an email that the vaccination proof has been reviewed, it's been approved, and you're cleared to come into campus on August 16th. Anything else with the upload of the vaccine card that you can think of, Rachel?
I think, I'm sorry. The form will be on the return to campus if you don't have the link. So please, all this information is on our webpage, which is, return to campus. But the form will be there and it will tell you step by step what to do in case you don't have information right now.
Okay. I have a question. It's regarding events. So one person is asking, will there be a in-person parents weekend? And to that extent, open house, activities on campus where students and visitors can congregate, et cetera.
We are currently, so I'm going to speak from a student events perspective. So those events that are sponsored by student organizations and student-facing offices. So we are going to have a return to those in-person events. We are lifting those capacities from our spaces so that will allow us more flexibility to return to those programming expectations. What exactly our fall calendar looks like, since we have been able to lift these because of the New York State guidance that just came out about a week ago, we are still going to be moving forward this summer, really confirming all of those dates and deciding what big events we're going to host, what are some of the campus traditions that we're going to return to, and how do we integrate our students into that. So that was a way to tell you yes, but I can't give you specific dates or specific answers on what events we'll be hosting, but we are looking at, with the student-facing events or student-hosted events, that we will limit those guests to only PACE students and faculty and staff who are cleared through the vaccination exemption process. And then we are also in conversation with a lot of the offices on campus, including athletics, including some of the other offices that have admissions or alumni relations. But how do we then invite our guests to campus who are not necessarily our PACE students, faculty, and staff? That is a population we highly value, and we still want to welcome them to campus. And so we'll be working on those details.
Great. Here's a question. Will professors be able to make accommodations for those students who cannot return to campus or return to campus late?
Yes, but there will be some exceptions pending on some internships. For example, if you're in CHP and the hospital say that you have to have vaccination, we cannot do those exceptions. So you have to check with your programs. Information will be available pretty soon regarding accommodations, but our intent is to accommodate the students whenever it's possible.
Great. Now, this person, I'm not sure what department or major, but they say, if I'm not returning to my campus and I take all my classes online, will I still need to be vaccinated?
No, if you're not going to be accessing campus at all, you're not required to be vaccinated. We do still recommend that you become vaccinated for your community, though.
So one person asked, good evening, what if we have been vaccinated and the vaccine is still under process and recognition from the WHO? Will we be allowed to submit documents after the 1st of August?
So World Health Organization vaccines are being accepted. They're being reviewed by the patient portal, Medicat, but they do need to be translated to English if they were provided in an alternate language.
Now, Andre, I want to mention one thing that might be a related question, is that question is quite popular for our international students. So
I was just going to ask you that, because it was a bit more detailed. As an international student said, what about us particularly?
And I want to encourage the international students. There is a very specific webinar for our international students, which will be on Tuesday of next week at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll be able to answer very specific international student questions, down to vaccines, down to quarantine, down to, I saw a couple questions in the chat about what if I can't get a vaccine from my home country until I get back to the US? And so we are going to be working on that so that we can help provide you with more information. But as Provost Quinones says, a lot of this information, if it's not already on the website, will be on the website very soon, and it'll give you guidance on how to do that too.
In case you cannot make the international web seminar, we will help you to get the vaccine. We will help you and accommodate you. Don't worry about it. You know how we support our international students, and we're going to continue to do that. So please do the web seminar, check the web page, and if you don't have the information there, contact the international office. Barry group will really help you. So don't worry about it. We will provide the vaccines if you're an international student that doesn't have access to the vaccine. So, but we can discuss in more detail Tuesday. Just want to be sure that, I'm easing some of the anxiety. So we will help, and we will be sure to support you.
So Brian, this one is more in your area. Is there a help desk, or who can I contact if I'm having difficulty uploading my vaccination results and card?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm pretty sure Medicat does have a help section within the program, but I'll have to dig a little deeper. I'm not as familiar with it as our healthcare unit.
This is maybe to Dean Carpenter. Will athletics be operating fully? What will athletics and the sports arena look like this semester?
We are so looking forward to having our athletics program back in full swing. I myself attended some of the limited fan opportunities at the end of the semester as we entered into some playoffs. And so we work very closely with Mark Brown and Mike Wynn and his entire team to start setting some of those policies up. Their intent is that with NCAA requirements of if we can get to 85% of our student athletes who are vaccinated, then most of all those restrictions will be lifted as far as play, lift, competition, those types of things. And then we are currently also working on developing those, how many fans can we have? Are they from, they're outside of the community? Because we know that there are parents and family members and even community members who are strong supporters of our athletic program. So we are looking to return to as close to normal as we can with that.
Vanya, in the academic realm, this is in your area. It's more from graduate students, and they just really want clarity on will graduate programs, can they choose graduate programs that will be online only if they don't want to come to campus and not be vaccinated?
Once again, it's yes, but some programs will not be able to be online if you have something that in CHP that requires to work on a hospital, or, you know, some STEM courses that are, you know, hand-on experience. So for most of the cases, yes, we will be able to do that, but there's some exceptions, and, you know, all that information will be available through registration.
I'm trying to get to the question that makes sense. That would be, I guess, here's a one for academic. Will Zoom stations be present in classes or smart classes, or the option to have?
All the classes, all the classrooms are now HyFlex. They will be available to have hybrid courses. Students that are, with the exception that they cannot be vaccinated and they don't want to be on campus, we will accommodate them whenever it's possible. So there is the ability to do it on any classroom or any class, depending on the requirements. Once again, is yes, but there's some exceptions to the rule.
And this question, I'll help them out because I'm not sure how they're.
So, Andre, before you ask that, just to follow up on the question that I couldn't answer before, I just put into the chat the email to reach out to Medicat for any upload support. So it's complianceservices@medicat.com. They'll be able to help you upload your documents.
Okay. And I'll segment this question so you can segment it in periods. For the summer and in the fall, can students just visit the campus anytime, or do they need to schedule an appointment or have some type of special circumstance or ID cards if they don't have one already? So how can students access the campus between like now, summertime, and then beginning of fall if they don't have an ID card? So they're questioning they don't have an ID card as of yet.
So currently the campuses are open to enrolled students. Anyone that is coming on campus, faculty, staff, student, does need to complete the PaySafe app, which is our daily health screener. We haven't quite opened up the campus just to general walk-on visitors. At this point, we are open for students that are enrolled in courses, but that's going to be changing soon. So we hope to provide some more information on that.
And Andre, if they're a new student, and Angie, I'm gonna turn it over to you next. If they are a new student and they are attending orientation, they should be able to get updated information about or how to secure their ID card. And I know that you can upload your photo digitally and then be able to, I don't know why I said digitally, you just upload your photo and then you can have your ID ready to go. And we can, in our orientation program, share more information with you about how you can pick that up. I know that last year we made arrangements as well to be able to send it home to some students. And there are also in-person orientation Saturdays. They're half-day programs, and they're starting the end of July, end of June into July. And so that would also give you an opportunity to be on campus and would give you an opportunity to get your ID. Angie?
So I just wanted to say at the law school, for any students that were wondering, in terms of your IDs, many of you uploaded your ID and they're sitting in the bursar registrar's office ready for you to pick them up. So you simply need to email the registrar's office, email me. We'll complete your PaySafe app. We'll make sure that you can get onto campus to pick those up. We are also going to be having several 2L and 3L orientations, at which time you can pick up your ID during that first week of school. But if you need to access campus this summer, shoot me an email and we'll get you that ID, no worries.
Great. So a question from a student wants to make sure and see what there's any objection to this. If we take online classes and we are doing an internship in person and the site does not require a vaccination, is that okay?
As long as you don't, you will not have access to the footprint of PACE. You will have access to wherever you're going, but you have to have that. You have to have a vaccination or be exempt to be able to be within our space. But you can have an internship if that internship does not require vaccination.
So you just mentioned exempt. So if I could just quick jump in, Andre, there are medical exemptions to the vaccine, as well as religious exemptions. These are submitted the same way as the proof of vaccination. There's a form that has to be filled out for the religious exemption. It's on the Return to Campus page. For a medical exemption, it does need to be completed by a licensed healthcare provider and submitted through Medicat as well. So the healthcare providers of Medicat will review both of those documents within typically a 7-day period and then reach back out to you.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to echo what Brian is saying. So it's going to be, you have to submit it and it's going to be 1 week or a little bit more to get a confirmation that you will be able to come to campus. So please don't wait for beginning of classes and expect that you will be in the classroom if you do it, 2 days before classes start. So try to do it early. It's the best way to do it in case you have a problem or in case there's a follow-up. So early is the best way to put your information on the portal.
So we have a question from one of our presidents of our student organizations, and she's just curious and just wants to make sure about capacity issues. Since we are coming back together, vaccination, will we have any capacity limits or is it back to normal? Meaning?
We are going to be back to normal regarding our capacity limits in rooms. So if you're used to having 20 or 25 people meeting at your weekly student organization meeting, or you have 45 people at an event, provided that you are still within the approved capacity for that space. We don't want to jam 40 people into a room that was built for 10. That's what we're going to ask you to do. Whereas maybe before we were a little bit more lenient that you happen to bring in 2 chairs from another room. We really want to make sure that when you're booking your space, you're booking the space for the amount of people that you are expecting.
And this is about the PaySafe App. How will that be enforced, or will that still be enforced for the fall and for the spring, or is that going away?
It's not going away. So we're still going to be completing the PaySafe app. It does give us great information on whether we do have symptoms, any possible exposures. Visitors will also get a new app to complete. So this will really help our campus stay safe.
Dean Carpenter, question about any rules, processes for arriving early, like summer session 2.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I was thinking about a couple different population of students. We have students who are currently in summer housing with us and will continue to stay on. There are students who are not here with us yet, but are coming for summer 2. And so if you are arriving early in the sense that you're arriving for summer housing, just remember that starting August 16th is when that vaccine requirement to be able to swipe onto campus is going to be implemented. So you should go ahead and get started now. Go ahead and have your exemptions or have your vaccination records. Go ahead and have that uploaded. It's not required of you to move in for summer housing, but it will definitely make it a little difficult for you to swipe into campus after August 16th.
I think we just want to reiterate the response we've given before about online classes and vaccinations, because some people might have joined in late. They might not have heard the earlier answers. So once again, if I am not vaccinated, can I take classes online?
You can get classes online, and you can also get courses that are in-person hybrid. So you have to, we will have that information linked to the courses. But yes, if you're not vaccinated, you will still be able to get classes online.
Okay. From our international students, she just wants to know what's the latest she can arrive to campus She's already a student at PACE, so she's a continuing student, and this will be my second semester, my second year. So what's the latest she can arrive?
We will have more information about this next week, Tuesday, and there will be all the information on the webpage. But my understanding is that it's 3 weeks after the semester start is the maximum you could be late. We will accommodate your courses at that time, giving you access to hybrid accessibility to the courses, but the max is 3 weeks.
Kind of, well, in the same realm, well, in the realm of getting back to campus, someone wants to know, I can't register for some of my classes because most of them are full. Any suggestions? Who can I contact? What should I do?
So I recommend you to contact your advisors. Everybody has a designated advisor to help you on these courses. We are opening more courses right now as we speak. We know that some courses are on capacity, so we're making new sections, but please talk to your advisors as soon as possible.
Here's something that students, I know they love: food. What will dining look like on campus? Is Starbucks coming back? Is the friendly ladies in the counter coming back? Oh, so they want to know what dining is looking like, options, spacing, distance, or once again, back to normal, food stations, pick our own food or served. Yes, dining.
So dining is coming back. We will have our Starbucks. Thank God. It's not just the students that love it. There will be enhanced cleaning in the cafeteria still, where they'll be cleaning counters, tables at an increased frequency. There will be plexiglass at some of the tables should anyone want to sit at those. But it will be a more typical dining experience.
And Brian, can you continue about ID cards lost, how to replace?
So the ID cards, you would have to work with auxiliary services. They would be able to replace the ID cards. I can get a contact and put that in the chat as well.
We have another representative from one of our clubs, Anthony. Clubs will be full swing, no restrictions, operate fully as like 2019. So no limits on capacity of your members. You can have events, request your budgets. So.
And Andre, there was another question I think we were looking at that was about should we continue to do hybrid events? And my answer is we want to get back to in person, right? But there were some benefits to a lot of the things that we did during COVID-19. Some of us found that Zoom meetings were really helpful because we didn't have to run across campus. You didn't have to take the elevator up to the whatever floor and then get stuck in the cross between traffic of classes. Commuter students who maybe thought it was just a little bit more convenient to be at home while they connected, or there's a lot of things that we learned. So I do challenge student organizations to think, what can we do in person? What can we do hybrid? What can we do online? What are the things that can still make us this really great community that gathers in person, but kind of thinks about some of those convenience factors? I've even had students who have said, I live 3 buildings away from your office, but can I just Zoom with you? I know I can come and meet with you in person. And sure, you just got back from a day full of classes, you're trying to make lunch. So there's still going to be some flexibility options. So I challenge our student organizations to think a little creatively, but still focus on that in person.
And here's a question about policy for off-campus guests. Is it something to change as we approach the semester, or reevaluate it once it starts? What does that look like?
Currently, that's the decision that we have made, is that the guests who are coming to the residence halls are only PACE University students who are approved to come back to campus through that vaccination and exemption process. Clearly, if you're going to have friends or family members who are going to help you move in, we will communicate how they are part of that process, like we did in the fall semester and even for some of you for the spring. But we're always open to look at that. So does that mean that we might change it before the fall? Possibly, but I want to communicate right now that that is the policy that we are implementing. If for some reason we were going to change it before the semester, we would communicate that, but it's more likely that we're going to be looking into the fall semester of reevaluating that. And we're looking at other colleges in the area, and we're not one of the few, but there's There are more colleges in the area that are looking at restricting just to residential students, and we wanted to take it a step further for the commuter students, but we're also open to looking at that. We'll get some student feedback too.
And this may be for Brian or Dean Carpenter. For communal dorms with shared bathrooms, what is the cleaning situation going to look like? Is that continuing?
Yes, facilities will continue cleaning all the shared spaces, especially the bathrooms and the communal dorms.
Yep, so, give me 1 second, trying to find the next question.
So Andre, while you're looking, if I could just quick bring up what testing is going to look like on campus. We're going to wind up using similar testing locations as we did this past semester. It looks like we are going to be partnering with the Broad Institute again. So it's going to be that lower nasal swab, not the longer swab that we started off last fall with, thank God. But with that, we are going to be testing all exempted or any individual that's in the process of getting vaccinated. They will be required to participate in our weekly testing. Anyone that's fully vaccinated will have the option to participate. And then as we're looking at conditions on campus, if we do notice any sort of increase in cases, we may loop in additional people to be tested, but that's really dependent on our analysis of our testing data.
Seems like a lot of the questions we've answered already. Change guests. Oh, one new question. Dashboard still available. Just you can answer this. I'm sure we will. Will the COVID dashboard still be available?
Yes, we're going to continue to track the number of tests administered. We'll look at our on-campus case rates, and the COVID task force always looks at the regional as well as New York State case rates as well.
Okay.
Really,
Andre, I have a follow-up.
Decision makers. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
I have a follow-up. We often get asked questions of, am I ever going to have to quarantine and isolate again? So thinking about the dashboard and whether we're going to report some positive cases. And the question is, do I have to quarantine or isolate again? And it depends. In general, the CDC recommends that people who are fully vaccinated with no COVID-like symptoms do not need to quarantine following an exposure to someone who's suspected or confirmed COVID-19. Now, some students may develop symptoms of COVID-19 and we'll be prepared for this possibility as we did last year. But for the most part, if you are vaccinated and you do not have COVID-19 symptoms, probably the answer is you most likely won't have to quarantine or isolate.
And I know we said it varies, but someone's asking the questions particularly to their area. I'm a senior speech language pathology major for the fall. I do have clinicals in the fall. However, I'm not vaccinated. Will I be able to complete my clinicals? If not, how will PACE accommodate me and those students?
So it depends where the clinical are. You have to talk to your department to get this information. Please remember that a lot of the health-related internship programs are requiring vaccinations. So that, you have to talk to your department to see if there is something available without vaccination requirement. But, it's up to the place that you're going to be working on.
Okay. Roommate question. I'm vaccinated. What happens if my roommate tests positive? Do I have to stay in the dorm room with that person?
So, it's a very good question. And everything that we have done this past year has been with the guidelines of Department of Health and New York State and CDC and a combination of all of those things. And so we're going to continue to do that. And it kind of dovetails to the statement that I had mentioned about if you are vaccinated and you come into contact with someone who has suspected or confirmed COVID-19, you generally do not have to quarantine, and that comes from the CDC. And If you happen to start developing symptoms, then yes, we would have to quarantine you. But for now, those are the guidelines we're going by. Brian, did I miss anything? I know you
No,
brought it up.
you're on point. And the roommate who did contract COVID would have to isolate. So that individual would have to be moved to one of the isolation rooms or suites that we do have on campus. But you would not have to stay in the same room with that individual. So at least for 10 days.
And a good follow-up to that is, so if a student is taking an on-campus class and is then removed, let's say for that reason, will they have to rely, or will be provided recordings or asynchronous? What will happen to that student? How will they complete their academic courses?
It's just like last semester, we will accommodate for most of the parts that we will accommodate students if they're on isolation. With the caveat that there are some courses that you cannot accommodate, STEM courses or some labs or something, but we will figure it out.
Let's see. There are some good questions. I think we covered a lot. Some of the questions we've covered. 716. And we do have information, just to let everyone know out there. We do have, we're putting websites or links to websites on in the chat about return to campus, about vaccinations, about vaccines. So there's a lot of good information out there. You can definitely please reach out to any of us in our offices if you do have continued questions. But please continue to ask questions. We have about 4 minutes or so before we try to wrap up and have some final words, but we do have a little bit more time for the questions.
Andre, so I was just looking through the chat and I saw one saying, what if I can't complete my second shot by that August 1 date? So in a situation like that, the school is going to make a good faith accommodation. So we know that you have the intentions to get the shot. So what we'll do is we'll have you fill a form for a good faith accommodation. It will be submitted the same way as the exemptions, but it will have a kind of timeline where you have to get that second shot by a certain date. And in that time frame, you are going to be treated as an exempt individual until you complete your vaccination. So once you're fully vaccinated, and up until then, or excuse me, up until you're fully vaccinated, you'll have to participate in the weekly testing, as well as wear your face covering and really do the other things that the individuals that are not fully vaccinated will have to do on campus.
So a student is asking, so what about offices on campus? Will I be able to walk in, ask questions, meet with individuals in the fall?
We are communicating, and President Kristoff and Provost Quinones have said we're open. So we are planning to, and we have been communicating with our faculty and our staff that we're back. Not that we left in the first place, but some offices had scaled back a little bit. Some offices were open a couple days, and we were always available via Zoom. But you should expect to see the offices open. Now, there may be still some great convenience hybrid Zoom opportunities to meet with folks, but you should expect the offices to be open, and really, we want to be there to see you anyways. Andre, there was a question in the chat about I'm planning on traveling outside of the country, and do I need to come back? When I come back, do I have to quarantine? And I wanted to give an opportunity to provide an answer there, is that New York State does not currently require quarantine upon arrival in the state, and also however, if you're coming to the US from another country, even if you're a US citizen or you live here, it is required that all air passengers who are fully vaccinated still have to have a negative test result no more than 3 days before your travel, or documentation of recovery from COVID-19 in the past 3 months before you board a flight to the US, whether you originated here on your flight or not. So make sure that you look up specifically the CDC travel notices and check to see if there are any restrictions on the countries that you have traveled to within the last 14 days before you come back, so that you make sure that you have no surprises when you enter back into the United States.
I think Dean Rachel Carpenter is right. Like the policies are changing constantly. You have to check the CDC webpage in terms of travel restrictions or travel information. We update all our information on the Return to Campus at PACE, the webpage at PACE. So some of these questions will be updated, but the safe place is, follow the CDC guidelines, and those are the ones that we will accommodate.
And that's somebody is asking a question about, are there any regulations for out-of-state students? So I guess that would apply. Check the CDC, check our websites to see if your state has any restrictions or we have restrictions from your state, correct?
What's wonderful is that those travel advisory state lists are so far gone for now. So no more guessing, is my state going to go on the list or off the list? It's more so the countries that you want to pay attention to. And if you've been in those countries in the last 14 days before you're trying to come back.
Someone is asking about, he's asked a couple times about a meal plan waiver as a commuter, if they can submit a waiver of some sort for their meal plan.
Well, I think
We don't have
there's-
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Provost. There are meal plan waivers that access through the Auxiliary Services Department. I believe Brian had already put in the chat the how to access auxiliary services. So there are meal plan waivers, both for commuters and resident students, based on medical issues or other. So that can be done. Thank you, Brian.
I think, we're at 7:21. Let's see if there's anything new. Now students. I think we've asked it before, but there's asking, just reiterate, we will have Zoom machines for students who want to attend meetings from home for student organizations.
Yes.
Sorry, I was nodding.
Yeah.
Yes, just in case they missed that part. Yes, we're still going to encourage, while we're still trying to make this effort to be more in person, because that's really the experience that we're trying to get back to. We also need to acknowledge the convenience factor and still the connections that are made over Zoom as well. So really need to be thoughtful and intentional about the modalities that, not just in the classrooms, but also socially.
And I think that also goes to whether or not, just to be really take a look at it fully, is the spaces that we're having programs in, and whether Zoom stations are in all event spaces. They're in all classrooms. They may not be in all event spaces, but we may find other modalities for that as well. So our goal is to be, as always, inclusive.
Andre, I do want to say one thing about before we wrap this up. There have been a couple questions in the chat about, what's the difference between allowing non-vaccinated people onto campus for tours and events and things, but you're not really expanding that option to residence hall guests who would then be usually overnight guests. And that is still something, as I said before, we are considering. This is the decision that we've made now. And we do need to continue to reevaluate things. We're trying to stay careful within the residence halls. I know it's a really fine line when I give this answer of, if you have somebody on tour, they're here temporarily, they're a little bit more in smaller groups. We are versus somebody who's going to be coming into their residence hall is going to be staying overnight with us. And I know that to students, that might not be a really big difference, but that's something that we're considering right now. But I'm acknowledging that you've asked the question. I'm acknowledging that that is something that's really important to you, and we will continue to reevaluate it and look at how could we make that possible, verification process, things like that. But we're trying to get closer to normal with the goal of going back to normal, but also acknowledging that we still have some room.
I also saw a question, and just to repeat, faculty and staff will be also expected to have the vaccine, as well as students. We just announced that recently.
I think we say before that some of these restrictions, this is how we're going to start the semester. We're going to monitor the situation. And, we did that last year. We changed some policies throughout the year. So we will reevaluate, the conditions and monitor what's going on there. So some of these visiting restrictions may be lifted by spring, but for now, we're being pretty flexible, including commuter students and students that are in housing. So I just want people to understand that we will continue monitoring the situation and ensure that we will change if it's needed, accommodate whatever change is needed.
Well, we're at 7:25. we've come to almost the end. I think we have answered a lot of the good questions. People seem satisfied to the point. So if we want to, I'll pass it back over to the president and the provost for final words.
Well, I want to say, again, we're really looking forward to seeing you. We're looking forward to having a wonderful fall semester. If you have particular ideas, please share them with us. And our goal is to keep everyone in the community safe and healthy and be inclusive at the same time. And I must say the questions tonight were just terrific. And I think they reinforced what we know about PACE students is that you're inquisitive, you're determined, and you want to get things done. And I thought your questions were really terrific. So thank you for participating. Vanya, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to, if you have questions, as I said before, our Return to Campus webpage has a lot of information there. Contact your advisor if you have questions about your courses. Contact your department. We're here to help. So please, if you have any concerns or any need for accommodation, let us know and we will work together. We're here as a community. We survive a storm. We're ready. We are more resilient and we're able to accommodate and move fast. But as a community, we will embrace everybody and we will figure it out. It's going to be great. Thank you so much. As Marvin said, we're very proud of all of you.
Thank you.